To episode 65 of this live stream series where I am programming an NES game live on Twitch from scratch in 6502 assembly. And last time I was trying to figure out a weird bug that we have in this code where basically when we start to load levels into, start to load objects into the level, we are seeing a problem where we get random things loaded into the entity memory, causing random sprites to appear. And it's a pretty strange thing. So we need to figure out what's going on. It sort of appears that this has been a problem from the beginning, but we didn't know about it. One other thing to mention, I thought I had the brilliant solution for audio other than just turning it up, but it seems like that idea didn't pan out. I was doing some testing and the audio volume is too loud. Or sorry, not too loud. It's too soft still, even with my idea. So we're just back to how we had it. I positioned the microphone slightly differently, and I did turn it up. So hopefully the volume is better now. You can let me know either live or in the recording. But anyway, so the problem we're seeing now is, so we see that consistent spawn of the sprite over here where it's setting up new entities and then causing those to generate a an explosion and a ship over here. It's pretty weird. So we need to figure out why that's happening. So last time what I said I wanted to do was I wanted to put in some memory sentinels into the structure here so that we can see if we're getting any sort of large overwrites of the data. So let's do that. Let's, I don't know what we want to call this. We'll call it like pre, and we'll say this is a byte here, and then this is a post, and this is a byte here. And then we need to figure out how many more bytes we want, because I want to also set this up so that when we look at it in the debugger memory here, it's bigger than 8 bytes. So I want to have it fit in the 16 byte row so we can kind of see it lining up nicely. I mean, that's purely just for me because it makes it easier to spot when things change if you're seeing each one of the entities be a row individually. I don't know. That's just how I like to do things sometimes because it makes it easier to spot changes. So let's see. We've got 1, 2, 3, 5 bytes, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we need 5 more. So filler 1, we'll just call it fill 1 word. Fill 2 word, that's 4 bytes. Fill 3 byte. And that should make those align with the 16. And then what we want to do, are we using T1 anymore? Oh, we were, just to make sure that that wasn't causing any problem, but we can always get rid of that. Let's, where are the entities? We need the entities to align 16 at 16 bytes also in terms of the placement. So let's move this down. We have to move all of this. Let's we could put it right at the beginning, although then the attribute buffer gets shifted. You know what, that's okay. Let's just put it right at the beginning. All right, so now the other problem with doing this is that total entities is the size of an entity times max entities, and if it's bigger than 255, it's not going to work. So what we need to do is 255 divided by 16, so that's 15, which is F. So the most entities we can have is F. 180. Really? Ram 1. Is it... Did we run out of 0-page memory here? I guess it's possible we did. Although I don't... Load a param 1. Alright, so let's see. What we can probably do... Did that actually change anything? Just shifted the line number. Range error in module. Alright, so, you know, rather than trying to fight this right now, let's just make this smaller. Let's see if we make a D, if that goes away. No. A. 9. 0. 1. 5. So I gotta figure out what that's actually all about. What it means when it says range error. For that, it's possible. I wonder if it's the bank is full. It's kind of a weird... Well, no, that wouldn't... I don't think that would change the bank size. I'm not sure. That's something about the memory access, obviously. The prog bank wouldn't matter. It wouldn't be affected by this change because this is all RAM change. So my guess is that it's got something to do with the location of these. Let's see. Did this get updated? It did. Let's see if there's anything useful in here. Adder param. 0-page. Size, scope. Value DD. So that's decrementing. Yeah, I'm just wondering if it's not really, if we're out of the space, we're out of space in the 0-page by making that so much bigger. The entity size. Well, let's just make this a size that works. All right, and let's restart this to make sure the behavior still occurs. All right, so now that's interesting. So the behavior doesn't occur anymore now that we've made that change. I bumped the mic. Sorry. So why is that? Let's look. So our entities start here, and we have 5 of them. 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do we have 5 or 6? Oh, 6. 6. That's max meta tiles I was looking at. So we've got 6 here. Right? So that's all of this is our entity information. Let's do another thing. Initialize entities. So what I want to do is I want to load AF into A, and I'm going to store it in entities, entity expos, actually in pre, but this isn't the right place. There's a spot where we are initialized. Here it is. So I want to store AF in pre and post. We want to see if any of those change. I want to also store, you know what, let's store that in the fillers too. Fill 1. And I realize I left out the X parameter here. I'll take care of that in a second. Fill 2, fill 2 plus 1, and fill 3. So I'm just add X now here so that we're actually indexing into this properly. And then we'll initialize the rest of it. So let's restart this, and you can see we've got AF here and AF all over here. If we start the game, we've initialized all of these to 0 for the type, and then the player entity is all living there in that first row. Okay, so those are the two flybys that just got spawned. Are there other changes that are occurring to that memory? So let's see, why is this not... Oh, okay, so this was a change I had made to see if this had any impact. So flyby 2, because I want those to actually do something. Okay, so they're just slowly descending down the screen. And then they're gone. So, for whatever reason, the problem has gone away. So there are a couple of possible reasons why that is. The first is the size change has caused that problem, or caused the problem to go away. The other possibility is that the placement of entities was the issue in the memory, and there's somewhere where we're overwriting our bounds of something in memory, and that was what was corrupting the entity list. So let's take a look at where that was defined originally. That was defined way down at the end here. So let's move it down. It was past all of these things. So let's move it all the way down at the end and see if by changing that we've changed anything in the way that it works, or doesn't work, consequently. All right, so let's find... Okay, so our entity memory is now here. Okay, so we are approaching the end of the 0 page, which I think is maybe the issue we were facing with that out of range message. So, again, the 0 page is the first 255 bytes because the code can omit the beginning byte of the address. It can just use the lower byte, and that's more efficient. So we could move it into... Well, let's see what's going on here, because I want to see what's actually happening. So there's still no problem. Still behaving essentially like what I would want it to be behaving like. We could... There are 2 bytes. Let's move these 2 to get this to align visually again. Oh, wait. I was looking at the wrong thing. It's not just those 2. How far off are we? I know it seems like maybe kind of a dumb thing, but it's much easier for me to spot a change visually if it's aligned. And we may not get anything out of this, but yeah, we'll give it a shot. So there's 9. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So let's move those. Okay. So let's see. So nothing really going on. Let me turn back the overscan to be 8, just so we don't see the tile stuff. Excuse me. All right, so so no problems there. All right. Well, if we change the structure back and try it. We can comment that out. All right, so let's restart that. And so our memory is now still starting here, but okay, and that's fine. That all still looks good because, let's see. Let's go to the debugger here. Oh, actually, we shouldn't need to. The player should be right here at 9.0. Open up, please. Yeah, so that's still at 9.0. And curious to know. Well, that seems to be okay. All right, so then the number of entities we had previously. What was it? So 18 entities were allowed prior to this. Wait. Okay. What's going on here? So I didn't change what's in an entity. I just moved some things around, and now level object count. Max entities, hex 12. Is that the problem? Was there some sort of bug that was causing this to work despite having some sort of out of range error? So if we make this 10, this is fine. let's revert this code back for a second. Let me take a look at what we actually changed. And so this is commented out, right? So that had no actual change. We moved some things over here, and we shifted some things around, but ultimately we didn't change anything in terms of the size of things. I wonder if that's the problem. I wonder if there's some sort of weird bug in CC65. Let's see. Let's discard the change. And what we'll do is we'll run this the way it is now, back reverted to what it was. And there's the problem again. We get the sprite here, right? But let's just do a simple thing. Well, let's do a couple things actually before we do that. Let's take a look at where things live in memory and see if that makes sense based on what I'm thinking here. So the entity memory starts where? Here? At 9A or 9.9? Entities, 9.9. So it starts here at 9.9 and it goes all the way to the end of the 0 page. Yeah, I wonder if that's a bug where now it's referencing. Let's try something here. Let's reduce the number of max entities. Let's make it, or even better, let's do this. Let's do T3 res 1. And then let's, in our reset code, let's do store A T3. Is that what I called it? 3? I don't know what I don't even remember what I called it. It's been that kind of day. TS3. Okay. Yeah, so range error. So I bet that's what the problem is. It must be something where it doesn't know that it's overflowed the 0 page because it is calculating the size here. If we make this 5 or 6, that's fine too. I wonder if the problem goes away. Let's find out. Yep, problem went away. Now it's not spawning the enemies because I had hard-coded this change to zero it out every time, but if we put that back, the enemies should be appearing. There they are, and they're not doing anything because we're still not processing those entity types, but that was the problem. So there's... Alright, so the good news is that that's a pretty straightforward thing to fix, because now we know what the problem is. It's just interesting that we encountered that problem without any sort of warning or anything, but it goes to show you that compilers do have bugs, or assemblers in this case, and when that occurs, it can be really tricky to figure out why your code has stopped working for seemingly no reason. Alright, so let's go to... I've got CC65 here. I want to change... Let's see. So we've got 0 page here as a segment. And that's defining. I wonder if that's what the problem is. Is that right? Let me go to CC65's homepage and check what the stock configuration looks like, because I know I changed this for what we're doing here. And I'm wondering if that definition is wrong. I mean, because the 0 page is only, I believe it's just the 255 bytes in the beginning. Let's take a look here. Just to make sure that I'm not completely misremembering or being stupid. Where is... I guess it would be under CPU. Addressing modes. 0 page indexed. 0 page indexed, absolute indexed. Memory map. Right, so there's 2K of RAM. So is the problem... Does it actually know? Yeah, it does know. So the type is listed as ZP. Let me go back to the one we just downloaded here and take a look and see if the config definition here is different than what we've got. I know it is, but I want to see how different it is for the 0 page definition. That might just be a mistake I made when I was changing the configuration here. Alright, so 0 page. Yeah. So this is saying the size is just 1A. So let's see, what's 1A? $26. Data. What is data used to define? This is RAM. Start. Oh, that's an SRAM. Okay, so where is the main memory configured? Standard 2K SRAM. So I guess this is interesting. So they're dividing up the memory here. It looks like for the C compiler to have parameter memory and CPU stack and stuff like that. That's different than what we're doing. So let's do this. Let's make, instead of making this whole thing our 2K, right? Because come on, that's 2K. It's not really 2K, right? It's just that, which is our 256 bytes for the 0 page, and then we have our regular memory, and that is 2K minus that. So dumb. I knew that. 700 hex. Type equals read write. Define equals yes. And so then we have RAM load equals RAM. Type equals read write. Okay, so let's see here. Memory area RAM defined twice. Okay. Oh, I gotta call it. Let's call it CPU RAM, shall we? Segment RAM doesn't exist, so we gotta add it now. And let's do this. Let's move the entities into there. Just for proof of concept. All right, so now okay. So that's interesting. So the reason the reason that this branch of equal is now out of range is because of the fact that that load A is talking to something that does absolute addressing instead of zero page addressing, which is it requires the extra byte. So let's see. So branch, if not equal to the next label, the unnamed label, and the otherwise jump there. And there's our unnamed label. Let's see if we've broken this, shall we? Okay, good. So that's not broken. That's exciting. That means they at least nominally know what I'm doing here. Yeah, and there's our player entity in the non-zero page memory. Now, the only thing about that is that it's likely better to have the entity memory in the zero page memory because it is something we're going to access a lot. And so the zero page memory accesses are faster. So we might want to consider moving this, but let's rebuild this. Now the other thing that we should see if I did this right is by changing this, we should get, yes, okay, so it overflows. So that was the problem. So we were overflowing the zero page without realizing it because we had not defined the size of the zero page properly for the assembler. And so it happily allowed us to have the entity's memory flow over and past the zero page, but it shouldn't have. So let's do this. Let's move some of the things that are less frequently accessed. Let's see what we've got that we can use. Although, well, yeah, I don't know what constitutes less frequently accessed in this particular case, but we can, you know what, let's just move it into the RAM, into the non-zero page RAM, and keep it at that for now. We can always come back. I find that I'm thinking that I'm spending too much time trying to optimize for conditions that we haven't hit yet, just because I'm trying to be careful and making the code more complicated rather than simple. So that all looks like that's working now. So that's exciting. Let's put the flyby stuff back here. So Okay. And then I think we also, I think I removed the check bullet collision stuff. So let's see here. So we're just looking at finding if we've collided with its collision box, and then if we did, well, where do we check the type? Oh, okay. Okay. So now it should allow us to shoot those things and destroy them. And they should also... No? Compare... Did I not build it? Interesting. Why? Oh. Branch not equal to the next. No. We have to compare it against both of those, and then if neither one of it is, so okay, so branch if equal to check collision, otherwise this, and then branch if equal to check collision, otherwise jump to, it's not something we're gonna check collision point, what is it called? Bullet collision skip entity. And that is this. That's why. I just wrote the wrong test logic there. So let's see. I missed. There it goes. All right. Okay. And then I blew up. Great. All right, cool. So we fixed that problem. That is exciting. Let's commit this change here. Fix the problem with random entities spawning due to zero page overflow. The NES config file for CC65 was not properly set up to handle only 255 bytes in the zero page, or 256 bytes really. Instead was allowing for a full 2KB, which is wrong. And I want to stage this here because at this point we know it's in a pretty good situation, at least in terms of the bugs that we were seeing here. So, all right. Now, we're in an interesting situation here with the way that we have the objects loading. So if we go to tiled, And by the way, I'm going to keep this one a little bit on the shorter side, just because, one, I'm tired, and two, the last couple have been longer, or the last one in particular was longer, so I don't know that it's necessary to draw this out. Anyway, so the problem we're facing now is that we have a few different sprite types. So if we go to the project viewer, the asset tool, we have the flyby and the flyby 2, we have explode, we have bullet, we have the player. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 different sprites, all with different palettes, right? And the problem is that we obviously can't load more than 4 palettes for our sprites. Now, one thing I just realized is I know I fixed here, it was comparing the palette count, or the palette number against 4 and then skipping it if it was greater, and that was because we had not checked that. So let's see, so if bit 7 is 1, then use the sprite palettes. Does this work for... I'm just looking to see if this is... Okay, so it's using... All right, so that's actually fine. That check is just checking in general. I thought for some reason, I couldn't remember if I had divided up the logic between the background palettes and the sprite palettes differently, but it's just this part here where it's checking to see if it should use the sprite palettes or the background palettes instead. So, all right, so we're good there. All right, well, so the question is, how do we handle this situation? Now we know or at least I know, the code doesn't know, but I know that the player and the bullet palette, if they're not the same, both need to be loaded. And then, in terms of any other palettes that need to be loaded, it's really a question of what entities are on screen at that point. We don't want to hard code the palettes, so not right now, thank you. So if we're looking, I have the pen upside down, if we're looking at the screen, the level, it's not doing what I wanted it to. We have our level here, and we have our player, and it's moving up, and the screen is scrolling up. We have whatever stuff, and we have the enemies placed here. And not just the enemies, right? Like we've made it so that it's generic. We can place any sort of object, like power-ups or anything we want in the level. And the question becomes, how do you handle... I guess what we would need to do is a few things. One is we would need to look at first of all, well, I don't know how you even solve... Well, okay. No, we do kind of... Sorry, I'm thinking about it and kind of flipping back and forth in my mind about how we would potentially solve this and whether it's solvable. So if this is just a screen and we have the player here and we have two enemies, that's essentially our palette list if the bullet is also a different palette, right? Because we're firing the bullets and we've got these two enemies and maybe they're two completely different enemies. And so we have a couple of things we can do. We can say, okay, for the enemies when they spawn, we load their palette into the PPU. At an appropriate location in the PPU. The problem with that is that if we, let's say we have a whole bunch of enemies and they drag on for some reason on the screen, and we get another one that's up here that has a different palette that then comes on screen as the screen is migrating up, then we're going to have a problem where the colors shift because the palette of this, right, so we have, let's say, P1 and P2 and P3 and P4. This is P5, which is not possible. So if we were to remove those palettes or change those palettes as the entities come on screen, then one of the palettes will become invalidated by a palette that doesn't make sense. So there are a couple of things we could try and do. One is we could say, well, all enemies use the same palette, and or all objects use the same palette, and we try to enforce that in some way. We can do what other shooter games tend to do, which is that they have the same enemy come in waves. And so like in the Guardian Legend, if you've played it, or if you remember from one of our previous streams, not the Guardian Legend, sorry, Gradius? Did I do that on stream? I don't know. But if you've ever played it, like in the beginning, right, you get the ships that come in and then fly and then zip back in, and then you get the other ships that come in and zip back in, right? They're the same thing and they have the same palettes, and I suspect that part of that was probably on purpose to, avoid this problem. What I'd really like to be able to do is have the asset tool be able to look at something like this and say, okay, well, this is a screen size, and you have 3 different palettes that you have to load, and that doesn't include the player's 2, or the player and bullet 2 palettes, and so you're not going to have enough palettes. But that's not always going to be 100% true, because depending on the enemy behavior, these enemies may be long gone off screen by the time this one shows up. Not to mention that if you destroy it, it's gone too. But you can't. You have to build the logic around the idea of the player is, passively. Let's say the player is playing where they're avoiding shooting any of the enemies, or collecting any of the power-ups, just for argument's sake. Then I guess feasibly we could figure out a way to determine whether or not we'd run out of palettes for sprites. And that's not even taking into account the idea that, maybe the player sprite might use multiple palettes, and then we're really kind of in a bind. So am I overcomplicating this by trying to pretend like we can do all this fancy palette swapping, or is it something we actually have to do? Because if we just force the level to be limited to, you know, essentially the four fixed sprite palettes, then there's really nothing to detect or change or anything. That could potentially get boring visually because everything will have a certain amount of sameness. Now, on the other hand, that might also give the level some consistency. Like if you have too many wildly varying colors that may just appear like there's a lack of cohesive visual design. I think given that this is my first NES game, probably what I want to do is just look at how many palettes are used and raise an error if there are more than 4 total palettes, and allow you to consolidate the palettes across the different sprites. Like, so the player sprite, the bullet sprite, and the explosion sprite. See, that's the thing. Those 3 in and of themselves pretty much take up most of our color availability. Now, I will say this. Between those 3, that does give us a pretty decent set of colors to work with. So maybe we just make the flybys use similar palettes. So like this, oh, I didn't save that change. So this and this either have to use the same palette or one of the palettes of something else. So like the flyby palette, you know, it'd be cool would be to be able to do something like just apply the palette of one sprite against another. We can implement that. I'm trying to think what would be. And you have a button that says copy palette, and then you click the item in the list that you want to copy the palette. It's not really super intuitive. Probably be better to have it bring up a list. Of a list of the sprites that you want to choose, and then have a button. We can do that. I think we can do that. All right, so let's try and implement that so we can get at least consistent sprite palettes working tonight, and then from there we'll work on making the export smarter in terms of understanding what palettes are used and consolidating them down so that we actually have the right colors. Because that's the other thing. Because we have so many sprites now, if you go back to the game and you look at the colors of the ship, for example, you can see they're not right. And the reason they're not right is, and I talked about this last time, but just to kind of recap, we only loaded the first 4 set of colors based on the sprites. So the bullet palette is good, the flyby palettes are good. It looks like, I don't know, is that supposed to be the ship's palette? what palette is that? Come on, open up. Is that the ship palette? No, so what palette is that? Bullet is... Are we not even getting that? Let's see. Flyby. Oh, I'm looking... No. Sprite viewer. We're not even getting those right palettes here. So what's going on with that? What palettes are these? We have gradient, which we're not using, but I guess would be... So that's not even loading. So we've got blue, that's there. We're not using green. We are using bumper. And that's this here. So that's bumper and blue. These two are unused background palettes. And then this is a odd misrepresentation of flyby 2. Is that right? So like if I we can test that real easily. If I change the color to green, save, export, and where is that folder? Did I close the folder? See if that reloads the changes the palette that's used there. Okay, so it loaded the background palettes. Is it not loading? Is it not loading the sprite palettes right now because of this change that I made? Load a param 2 and it branch if not equal to load sprite palette. Load a param 2 and compare to 4. Did I just make a mistake in my logic here? Well, no. I mean, that should be... I want everything but the topmost bit turned off. Sorry. I want just the top bit turned off, the most significant bit, because that would be set to 1 if we were talking about sprite palette. And then this is load x param 1, blah, blah, blah. This is all the same. Store A, add a param 1, set PP memory, so load 2002. Load param 2, and it, and compare it to 4. I mean, it's obviously loading, or is it? Let's do a full power. Well, that is a power cycle. Let's see. Is it not changing any of the sprite memory? That would be weird because then I'm not sure how it was getting set to anything. Okay, so it is getting loaded. So flyby2 has this green. Is it just a misrepresentation of the palette? Doesn't seem like that would be the case. The layout is different. I can't read what that says. What is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there are 8 there. So that's this section here, and then that's this there. So it's this green 0, 9. Is that what that is? Oh, 8, 9. That's not what I chose, though. It looks like it saved it. Did it just not export it properly? Oh, goodness. You know, you solve one problem, you find another. Going on here now. So now it's black. That is weird. Let's take a look. Load palette. And let's look at what it's doing for load palette sprite mem. Okay, so let's restart. So param1 is 80. Oh, wait a minute. That's a bug. Damn it. So, yeah, that's a bug because it should be doing the same thing here. Load A that and it, and then transfer A to X. It's weird that that worked, though, before, or it seemed to work anyway. Let's see. Okay, load param, transfer A to X, 0, that's fine. Skip palette load. Now, why is it 4 when it wasn't 4 before? Param1, param2. Oh, is the palette to load, the palette in the PPU. Load palette to palette in the PPU into which, yeah, so that's where we're loading it to. This is yeah, that's okay. Load A, param2, and it with this, and compare. I don't think that's right. What happened? Okay. So that's that. Param 1 is 0, and param 2 is 8, 4, which is just 4. Palette in the PPU into which the parameter... Why is it... Oh, okay, right, okay. Because it's for sprite number 4, and we were just doing a direct load. Okay, so that does make sense now. All right, so then this is loading that, and that is now going to be for 5. That's for 6. 7. So that's odd that ever worked. What are the palettes that are early on? There's flyby. Is there a bug in the way it's defining the... Because flyby should be 1, flyby 2 should be 2, explode should be 3. Oh, okay. Wait a minute. So it's not changing the base address that it's loading based on if it's a sprite or not. So technically this should be 8, even though realistically that's not exactly right. I'd rather it modify the base address it's using. So right now it's always assuming that it's 3F00, which is the start of the palette memory. I'd want it to switch which base address it's using based on if it's a sprite or a background, and then do it 0 index. But that's okay. We'll just fix that so that it's loading. That explains why it wasn't loading sprite palettes properly. It was because it was treating them all as being invalid. And now you can see we're getting colors that make more sense there. And the bullet looks good, the flybys look good. The player is still off, but that's okay. That's to be expected. So, and that's because the player sprite is, player is what, 5, I think, in the entity list. Yeah, so the player is out of the bounds of what we can do there with the palettes. So, all right. I'm surprised it didn't load. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's just... So, it didn't load that crazy color because it got overwritten by... what would be the next thing? The explode having this black background. Just set that... It doesn't matter what we set the background to on that sprite. Whatever the last update to the background is, it's going to override it because it's a universal background color. All right, so let's do a quick and dirty palette swap operation, and then I'm going to wrap it up because I'm done. I can't. It's been a long weekend. I've been up late a lot this week, and we accomplished what I wanted to, which is that we fixed that problem with the entities spawning spurious sprites. So, all right, let's see. Where's the button for that? So that's the button for that. And that's, we want it below that. I'll call it. So we'll call it palette swap, and we will kind of put it right in between export project. Where does that live? That lives here at -50, so we want like -70. Let's, or I shouldn't call it palette swap. Well, I guess it is kind of a palette swap. Why is that? Oh, because of my dumb UI ID system that we still haven't fixed. Okay. So there's save sprite. What? Okay. Make it 8004. Okay, so placement aside, what I want to do is I want to say, okay, if you click this and then click an item there, it will swap the palette of the current selected sprite. We can make it bring up an actual list and stuff like that later. I'm kind of done. So so let's do this. And obviously that's not defined anywhere. So let's do that. And here we are creating our list items, and if it is a sprite, let's go to the end here and say palette swapping equals false. So basically, if we came in here because someone clicked on the list item, but it wasn't a sprite that they clicked on, then we're not going to do anything with it. So if palette swapping else and are we doing anything else with it if it's a sprite? No. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to create a sprite called temp sprite, and we want to load sprite temp sprite current file list I full path. So we want to load that into memory, and then we just want to do a mem copy of current sprite palette to temp from temp sprite palette size of temp sprite palette. So just whatever the size of the palette is, do the copy, and then image changed equals true to force it to redraw. And that should be it. So if I have this and I say palette swap and I click that. All right, let's see what manner of bug I've introduced here. So click on that. Okay. So I've got the temp sprite, which is the flyby, and the current sprite is flyby 2, and I am copying the memory, and I'm saying image is changed, and oh, you know what? I gotta put sprite selected. That's why. I thought about that, and I was like, well, why would I need to do that if I already had a sprite selected? But it's because we change that to false here when we're beginning the check for what we need to do now that something was selected. So palette swap. Okay, and now it changed the palette. Didn't redraw that though. So if we save the sprite, oh, that's interesting. All right, let's that's another thing we got to fix. So that's that. Let's so what is it doing that's not right here? Palette swap, click flyby. Oh, you know what? We want to... All right, the problem is that it is still switching to the selected item, it appears. Selected image, image selected, sprite selected, selected image index, sprite image changed. Okay, so I've got to update that too. Current image equals sprite to image current sprite. Okay. Let's try that again. So that's looking good. So palette swap, click on flyby. I don't know why. Is it because, oh, because if you hold down the button, boo. Okay, because it's I didn't realize it does that. So by holding down the mouse button, I'm able to kind of shuttle through these. Guess I'm trying to think how to prevent that, because now it's doing what I want where it swaps the palette, but I've got the wrong thing selected, and then obviously if I go back it's showing me what it's supposed to, which is the fact that I selected flyby 2.sprite. So if I change, no, that's not going to work. How do I do this? Probably by just not half-assing it like I'm doing here. All right. I mean, it sort of worked, but So let's see here. I don't remember. Okay, so what, I'm pretty sure what I want is. Thought I created. Oh, I did create a. Oh, that's what I want. I want a frame. Let's say 50-50. I don't know. I don't remember if this actually works. I think I got it working, but it's been a while. Okay, so it's got, oh, so it's just the base frame, and then I believe this is properly offsetting it within the context of the frame. So I just want to add a button to close this thing. Okay, so that didn't do exactly what I wanted, but it's not really a frame anyway, is it? It's, what did I call it? I was going to use this for something, and then I ended up getting rid of it. Window begin, maybe? That seems more likely. Let's see if this does what I was thinking the frame did. Okay, so that created that. Oh. Created a huge button or something. 901, 902. Okay, there we go. So it's not perfect because it's still incorrectly select. Well, that's because the mouse is down over it. But all right, so that's close enough for now. It opens it up. That should be transparent, but okay. So let's make this a cancel button, And then, what is it? GUI, anchor, bottom, GUI, anchor, right. Let's see if that places it where I want it to be placed. Not exactly. And it's also detecting it in the wrong place. Okay, you know, I'm going to stop for now. This is, I mean, we proved out the idea, and the thing is that there's more to do, and we're already over an hour, and I'm fading fast here. Basically, once we get the asset tool stuff fixed up, we'll be able to swap the palettes like we were doing before with the list selection. It'll just actually do it in a separate list so that it doesn't interfere with the main list, which is probably the right way to do it anyway, to bring up a list of sprites that you want to swap with. And then we've got to change the way the asset tool is exporting out the palette information for the sprites, so that any sprite that's sharing a palette can do so on the NES as well. And then also it should detect if we're using more than 4 sprite palettes. Yeah, we'll see where we go from there. We need to be able to do the same thing for the background meta tiles. Although the background meta tile swapping of palettes is probably easier to do, we might want to consider, I think I'll probably implement that, just because that's more of a tractable problem to solve. I mean, you're moving at a fixed speed, and you can have essentially a way you can check the map to see if there are any areas of the map where you have more than 4 different palettes for the 4 different meta tiles. It's trickier with enemies and stuff because they move around and obey different logic than just scrolling. So that'll be for next time. And like I mentioned in the last stream, we'll have Bo from Soul Goose Productions on to do a little chat with us November 1st. I have a few more people that I'm lined up with, or lining up chats with, and they, depending on how things go, they might be the same week, just because that week I'll be traveling for work, and it might just work out that way. And so instead of doing streaming where I'm coding, it'll be streaming where we're talking to some home brewers, which will be cool. But as always, thank you for watching, and hopefully the sound was better today. And if you have any questions, you can reach me on Twitter at Clairvis. You can also post questions in the comments in the video in YouTube, or reach me at my email, or just come to the Nintendo Age Discord, where we are usually talking about NES programming and other various things. So lots of great people there who are very nice and happy to help. And yeah, thanks. Have a great night, and have a great weekend, and see you Monday.